Welcome to the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast on Mintwave Radio and all podcast platforms. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer with an online program and would like to find out how to grow your business whilst having fun podcasting, go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. Let's dive into today's episode.
So welcome to the show. I'm so excited about today. We have Lisa Marie Robinson. Now, she's best known as the Sassy Wealth Queen. She's the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach and Cash and Sass podcast. With over 20 years experience in accounting, she now helps women, entrepreneurs, manage their money with confidence so that they feel empowered. And that is really what we're going to be talking about today. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, helping coaches and experts design, create, launch, and grow their podcast so that they can turn them into sales machines, which I'm pretty sure this is what Lisa's already done. So welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And first of all, I suppose let's start with what was the inspiration for you behind the Sassy Wealth Queen?
Was all the years of barely making ends meet and not realizing at the time that I didn't have a good relationship with money. We had a love-hate relationship. I love to hate it. And knowing that there just had to be something better. There just had to be another way than working 60 hours a week and barely making ends meet. There had to be another way. There had to be something more. And when I was let go from my job and I was on food stamps, I made the decision I wasn't going back. I was done. And I haven't looked back. I started my business, and a year later, all of a sudden I found myself still struggling. I was like, okay, wait a minute, why? It was successful. So I started asking these questions, and mentor that I followed made a comment about, would you stick around if someone talked crap about you? Would you come back if somebody was talking crap about you nonstop and just putting you down in the dirt? And all of us that were on this call, hell no. Then why would money? And something clicked, and I went down a rabbit hole. When I say a rabbit hole, I went down like multiple rabbit holes. And I just started researching money trauma, money mindset, money stories, what it had to do with money management. Did they intertwine? Because I kept hearing everybody either talking about manifestation or talking about money mindset, but they weren't talking about management and the mindset and you see what I'm saying? They weren't talking about them three together. And so I just felt like there was something missing. And I found it and I was like, okay, we're going to try it. We're going to see if this will work. And these are the missing pieces. And it worked. It was like, oh, light bulb. Okay, I can do this, have a money roadmap and the mindset and have the tools and work. And I know exactly what's going on. And therefore I can create and retain and expand wealth. And that's where the Sassy Wealth Queen was born from, because I was like, I'm sure I'm not the only person who didn't come from money, who didn't come from wealth, and was told if you don't come from wealth or you don't marry into money, you're never going to have money. And the reason why I say wealth coach instead of money coach, and I call myself the Sassy Wealth Queen instead of money queen, is because to me, being wealthy is so much more better than just having money or being rich, because there's so many people who are rich who are miserable, or they're rich, they have lots of money and they're still broke. And the reason why is because they're not living aligned with their values, their desires, and their goals. And so to me, being wealthy is being wealthy in all the areas of your life so that you can truly live aligned with your values and your goals. And when you do that, you're able to make a bigger impact in the world the way heart-led women entrepreneurs want to do.
Love that, because it's right, isn't it? We all create these stories in our own head, depending on, a lot of it is down to our upbringing or a certain set of circumstances. And a lot of people do either go the way that, okay, I've just got to focus on the money, and then they're overworking, but then their relationships are failing and they're not happy. They don't have any time freedom. And so I suppose so many people think that they have to have one or the other, right?
Yeah,
And it's not true.
And a lot of times, I'll be a perfect example. The first year I was in my business, I put myself physically and mentally last. I was on a mission. And the mission was, if I was going to barely get by, then I was going to do it from home, that I was going to do it on my terms. And I did. And there was no plan B. So I went all in. What happens when, especially with women, we go all in? We tend to forsake ourselves or put ourselves last. And end of 2017, I hired my fitness trainer, she's my fitness coach, fitness trainer. She's also a life coach. But I hired her, and I started putting my mental and physical life, my physical health and my mental health first. And when I put me first, my business skyrocketed. It took off because I had more and I see it now, but it's because I had more energy. And that's the reason why I created the Wealth Mastery Method. And the Wealth Mastery Method is 5 areas, and it's being wealthy in these 5 areas, which is your spiritual, energetic, mental, physical, and financial. And so all 5 of those are important because if you listen, spiritual, energetic, mental, physical, and financial. These 4 make sure we're aligned. And then this affects the last one of how we earn money, how we talk about money, how we spend money, how we make an impact, or how we don't do any of that because we're not aligned, or we're miserable, or we're struggling, or whatever that may be. But normally, if we can get these 4 aligned, we're going to be a lot able to get this aligned. And that was the reason why I created it, because again, I couldn't have been the only one that was realizing, oh, okay, I've got some of these areas okay. And last year I created it and I was like, why am I still struggling? It was because something was off. And where was it off? And what's so funny is they all overlap. Energetic is the energy and who you're around, and are you around negative people, right? And how are you talking to yourself? And your spiritual is, again, you being aligned. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you sitting, and are you journaling? Which again overlaps to the mental. Do you see where I'm going? It all overlaps, which also, by the way, overlaps to the energetic of your journaling, and then overlaps to your financial. They all play a piece in each other. And I think we as entrepreneurs tend to forget that in order to have this and make an impact, then I have to forsake this. And really, you don't have to. Isn't that the reason why most of us stopped working corporate or never went to corporate, was because we didn't want to forsake one or the other?
Somehow we've been conditioned. Again, we've been taught from a very young age, you've got to work hard for money. You've got to work hard for money. And I think many entrepreneurs, when they get started, because they're wearing all the different hats, because if you work for a company, the company have got an HR department, an accounting department, a marketing department. And so many entrepreneurs, when they're starting out to grow their business, they're wearing all of these hats. So they get totally overwhelmed.
Yes.
And they don't realize that if you're looking to scale your business, you have to start thinking like a company and become the CEO of your company. And there's got to come a time when you've got to delegate these things out, because you can't be great at everything. Nobody's going to be great at everything. So there's got to come a time so that you can grow it. And I think especially as females, if you've got kids you're looking after, I'm in a easier place right now because I'm an empty nester. So I've come to the other end of things. I can remember what it was like trying to build your business with kids, and you're juggling all these different things. Again, what tends to happen is then our needs come last, because the kids come first. You're trying to do the business, trying to deal with the home. And what you've just said there about, you've got to focus on all those areas, because it will have a knock-on effect. Because I know for one, I've hit burnout more than once because I was focusing on just one of the areas. But yeah, when you take care of yourself, it's going to have a knock-on effect to the other things. You help entrepreneurs become financially independent, be confident with their sort of money management. You've mentioned there these 5 pillars, but what is your process? Because there's lots of financial coaches out there. And from what you've just shared, what you do is very different because you're looking after these 5 core pillars. But would you like to share a little bit more about your process and how you help?
One of the things I do is I intertwine the mindset, of course, because it's one of the pillars, coaching and CFO, which a fractional CFO is fractional chief financial officer. So that's my background, right? So I'm able to take that knowledge, and the first thing I do is that, one, I start where you're at. 2, there's no judgment. I am going to ask questions around these 5 pillars because I want to, the reason why I'm going to ask you questions around these 5 pillars, because I want to see where you're at in them. Are you doing certain things, or is one area being neglected? And then I'm going to find out what your goals are, what your desires are, like big, small, no matter what. And then I'm going to listen to the pain points and the troubles. Is there, are you feeling like you're on a hamster wheel? Are you saying, "Hey, I'm making money, but I have no idea if I ever have enough to do any of the things I want and make sure I still have taxes," or "I don't know if I can do this," whatever that may be. And so I take all of that information in, and we, first and foremost, we build a money roadmap. And the money roadmap is going to encompass all of those things. And then we're going to put a plan in place to make sure that those 5 pillars are, you're becoming wealthy in those 5 pillars, so that you're able to, I say it over and over again, live your life the way you want to live it, because your version of wealthy, Karen, is going to be different than my version, right? I have kids, so my version of wealthy isn't going to be packing everything up and living, just flying and being a nomad, right? And someone else's might be. And again, that's great. It's, the whole point is doing it for you, not for me, right? My version of freedom and being wealthy is being able to travel for my business and set my own hours, be home, be able to take care of my kids, be able to pay the expenses and expand, right? And make an impact in the world to where I'm able to help change happen. Okay. So I have this big vision. There's going to be other women who may have a bigger vision or as big of mine or even smaller. Again, it's what is our vision. And so we take that and we go, okay, now we're going to tailor it down to the smaller goals and how it goes into these 5 pillars, into that mastery method. And then we're going to start creating that, and we're going to start working on that. And I'm going to be honest, the biggest one is going to be that mindset, which is going to be around your spiritual, your energetic, your mental, because your mindset, the biggest enemy you can have isn't, for example, me, is not going to be another money coach or another financial coach or a CFO. It's going to be what my brain is telling me. My brain will stop me faster than anybody else can. I tell people all the time, you don't need to beat me up. My brain will do it enough all on its own. Okay. And I know I'm not alone, right? So I have tools, and I even have more tools. And that's the other thing is, if you go to a coach, whether it's me or someone else, and they don't also have a coach, and I don't mean just a business coach, someone to help them get more tools and navigate the mindset as they're up leveling. It's just me personally, I wouldn't want to work with them. That's me. Because I believe that even as mindset coaches, we should also have mindset coaches. We should have someone who's further along than we are with it, so that we can have more tools under our belt. Because you're never going to stop doing the work. Never. And there's always going to be some kind of new tool. I learned a new tool this year, which I absolutely love, and it's dance movement. It's moving the body to music, whether it's dancing or shaking or punching a pillow. And I'm like, okay, I like this, right? And my coach says, if you don't feel like, I said, what was it? I told her, I said, I look weird. She said, if you don't think you look weird, then you're not doing it right. Okay, then I'm doing it great. I mean, and
Brilliant.
it's just being able to have someone help you get things in place so that you can see it. Because here's the thing, a lot of times we're so closely connected to our thing. And I refer to it as we're in a pickle jar. And the reason why I say pickle jar is because I don't like pickles. So we're in this pickle jar, and all we can see is the nasty pickle juice and pickles in the pickle jar. See where I'm going? Because we can't see anything past that, we don't see what me or someone else might be able to see, and then help you get out of that pickle jar so that you can expand. Or you may think one way is the best way because there's a clear vision from that jar in here. But we're able to look all the way around and we're going, actually, even though it looks clear right there, you really don't need to be going that direction. We could actually do it this way and it'd be easier and it would work better. And that's really any coach. But for me, what I do, and the biggest thing I say is I start where you're at. And I take those 5 pillars and make sure that you're not just being wealthy in quote unquote money area or financial area. I make sure that it's aligned with all of these other 5, all of these other 4, so that you can truly make that impact that you want to make. So it's more holistic than anything, right? Because I think it's important. I really think it matters. When we are aligned in our spiritual selves and our energetic selves, think about it. We automatically put it out to the universe of what we can do and what we're able to change, we're able to make. And we're not as down, and it's just a higher end of caliber, right? And so then we're able to, we're able to go further. We're able to do more. Whereas if we're down in the energetic level or a spiritual level, and even though we're up in the higher financial area, we're feeling like we're not getting anywhere, or we feel like we're not making the impact we want to make. But because we're in it and so close to it, we can't really see what's stopping us.
And it's always us. We need to get out of our own way. And you're right. Everybody needs a coach. And I think for myself personally, I would be way too emotionally attached almost to the outcome of stuff. And we know that when you are, things don't go right. You have to find a way to become detached from the outcome, which when you're starting out can sound easier said than done, which is why it is important to have something. At the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, a big successful company, they cover all these areas anyway, don't they? If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, then you need to focus on all these areas or get help with it. And I love what you say about dancing or just shaking, all that stuff.
Move all that negative energy out.
Yeah. Oh, you need it. You need it. I come from the fitness industry, so I was very used to doing so much in that area, and then coming online, the difference was massive. And only recently, only in the last few months, I'd heard about this technique it's called the Pomodoro technique, where you literally work for 25 minutes, focus on one thing, and then you have a 5-minute break. And I would have the music on, I'll do a little micro workout here. So I'll get my workout done by midday, but it's been spread out in like little 5-minute bursts. And what the knock-on effect that had on me was massive, because it gave me energy. The 25 minutes that I was focused, I got more done in, say, 2 hours than I probably was doing all day previously, because I'm procrastinating and getting distracted. And so it just goes to show that focusing on a little bit of self-care can go a long way, because it will have a knock-on effect to how you feel, and then how you feel is going to have, there's going to be a knock-on effect to your actual actions and your consistent daily actions, and that's what gets you your results, right?
Yeah, no day is perfect, right? So if I'm having an off day, one of the things I'll do is, like, when there's a break in calls, or if I don't have any calls and I'm like, I can feel this is built up and I just feel, there's just like something in my head and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing, I have a Wealth Code playlist and a Wealth Queen playlist, and I will put on one of them, put my mat out, and whether it's one song or 2 songs, so either 2 minutes or 4 minutes, and I just move, and I just listen to a song and just move and just get it, whatever it is, out, so that then I can focus on the next thing. And when we say energetics, we're talking about your energy, but we're also talking about the energetics of how you feel. So if we're scrolling through negative stuff all the time, or watching the news all the time, or hanging around people who complain all the time, guess what, y'all? It's affecting your energy. It's affecting your energeticness. It's affecting your mood. It's the reason why I limit 30 minutes a day, news only. That's it. 30 minutes. And if anyone has the TV on for longer than 30 minutes on the news, I go to a different room. And it's because I was able to tell how it affected me. It made me cranky. It made me really bitchy. It messed with my mood. And I was like, you know what? Okay. I don't need to watch 3 hours of news when they're doing this. They're saying the same thing over and over again. I don't need to be in the vicinity to even hear it, even if I'm not the one watching it. So 30 minutes, and a lot of times I don't even watch 30 minutes, but 30 minutes is my max. That's it. One, and I'm done. And it's just being able to notice where there might be a leak and finding out the routine. Okay. And what would work for you? Is journaling working for you? Would movement work for you? What works for you? Because what works for one might not work for the other. I find the movement really works for me, especially if I'm already in my head. Journaling's not going to work because I'm already in my head. Nothing's coming out on that paper when I'm already in my head. Movement, punching a pillow, moving, stomping, whatever it is, that works. And then I find myself able to put stuff on paper, to journal out, which, you see what I'm saying? It goes hand in hand. So it's finding what works for you. I don't
so
do
what do you,
cookie cutter. I think that's the important thing. I do not do a cookie cutter. I don't believe in cookie cutter.
no, because we're all different. We're all different. But what do you think is one of the biggest things that sort of stops female entrepreneurs from having this balance? What's the biggest sort of holdback, would you say?
The stories they tell themselves.
Are we good at that?
Yes, we are, aren't we? Again, they could be like me. I don't tell myself stories. I don't talk bad about money. I got called in very lovingly when I first started my business from the mentor, showing me how I actually didn't really talk good about money, right? Or that I was treating it badly, or I was telling myself a story and I just didn't realize I was doing it. And when we're told stories more or over and over, what happens? We tend to we believe it, right? Even as kids, even as young adults. And so what happens is a lot of times we end up telling ourselves the same story, or we make it worse, or we compound it with another story. I believed, okay, every single time I would start coming into money, I'm like, okay, I started making money and then I found myself broke. Oh, they must be right. I'm supposed to do this. Actually, what was happening is I was in my own way. And because subconsciously I was saying they were right, I had to make sure they were right. So I got rid of the money by spending it before I could do anything to prove them wrong. A story's a story. What do we do if we don't like the story? Especially if we're writing it. We change it, turn the page, and change it. Yes, I know I just made it sound so much simpler than it really is. And it's also in some ways that simple. Get it out. What would your future self be? Who, if you money was no issue, you didn't worry about what other people said you should be doing or not doing, what would it look like? Get it all out. And then from there, okay, what can you change now to be that person, to start living like that person even before you're it's actually happening. And that's one of the things that I started doing is, okay, I don't want to be barely making it. I don't want this story to be true. So what can I do to change it? And I wrote the story of my future self, which I'm pretty much living it now. So now I'm in the process of writing another future story.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm not done, right? And it's recognizing that I'm now telling myself new stories. And by the way, it doesn't change. You're always going to work on that mindset. You're always going to work on those 5 pillars because you're bettering yourself and you want to keep making an impact. And you want to take care of your health. You want to take care of your business. And all of those things are intertwined. But what stops a lot of women is the stories they're telling themselves, or reaching out, the fear of being judged. Why don't I have it? I have this master's degree. I have this. Why am I not smart enough to figure it out on my own? Or they're going to judge me because I tried and I made a mistake. They're going to judge me because I've had a bankruptcy. They're going to judge me because whatever. I'm not going to judge. Lord knows I have no room to judge. July 2nd, I turned 51. I have had a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, 2 foreclosures, a short sale, and probably enough repossessions to make someone's head spin in my entire life. I now have better credit than I've ever had in my entire life. I make more money than I've ever had in my entire life. And when I started my business, I was on food stamps. So there is no judgment because, again, shit happens, life happens. Some of that stuff was my fault, and some of it was act of whatever falling apart, the housing market or whatever. And because of some of the decisions I made beforehand, before having it all affected, right? And I didn't have a good relationship with money during any of those. So I thought the world was against me, and come to find out the world's not against me. I needed to learn how to have a better relationship with money so that I
Mm.
could see that I could create and retain and expand wealth. And I didn't have to marry into it for it to happen. And it didn't matter that I didn't come from it. That's and I'm determined to show other women and help other women who've started these businesses, let them see that, you know what? It can grow more than you ever imagined, and you can do more of an impact you've ever imagined. You're probably like right there. You just don't see maybe a couple of leaks or whatever, or some story just needs to be changed. And it's okay asking for help. That's the other thing. I
Mm.
was always told I need to depend on me. I could only depend on me. So don't ever ask for help. It took years for me to learn how to ask for help, and not only how to, but to accept help and know that there wouldn't be judgment coming from it, which is the reason why I pride myself on that no judgment.
And it's crazy, isn't it, that we again somehow in whether this is society, whether it's come from parents, I don't know, but we have, and
Probably can come.
I'm sure it's men as well, but I think women even more so that it is we failed if we ask for help. We do have this thing in our head that we've got to manage everything and control everything. And again, when you look at any company or anybody who takes a franchise out, everybody gets help. Everybody, a lot of big businesses, they would have had funding to start their business. And we think we've got to start everything from scratch by ourselves. Yet they're not ashamed to ask for help or ask for funding or franchise. They get given everything, all the systems, all the processes. That's why you put money into a franchise. But you can do exactly the same with your own business if you actually ask for help. So this
Mhm.
is definitely something that women, we need to get over. We just need to get over that because there's no shame in asking for help. Show me one single successful person who got there by themselves. I challenge
Nobody,
you.
and I'm even gonna tell you exactly. Gary V, y'all, everybody knows Gary V. Okay, do you not see? He talks about it all the time. He has coaches. He has people he asks for help or advice from. He's constantly having. How do you think he got as big as he did? And he'll tell you he didn't do it by himself. He- and he's as big as he is now. Yes, has he put in? He has that. What is it? That all work mentality. And later on, he'll tell you when you're first starting to make it. Yeah, you got to put in more hours. And if any entrepreneur tells you that when they first started they only worked 2 hours a day, I call BS because they may work it now. Great, they didn't work it when they first started. Because when you first start, unless you already have money in the bank and that you can hire everybody to do the things already, you're working more than 2 hours a day, period. There, I don't care what anyone says.
I've done the 17, 18 hour days. And isn't it funny? Because now I can look back and go, why didn't I just go and get investors? And I think it must have something to do. Again, that's mindset, isn't it? Because if I truly believed that I was going to get where I am now, why didn't I go with a business plan and go and get investors to do it? I obviously didn't really believe it. And I thought I had to do it by myself until I got to a
Or you
stage
believe,
where I
right.
could get a VA or I could start taking on people.
My first year, I was just me. My second year, I had a part time VA. Now I'm 7.5 years in and I have an OBM and a VA, and I have two people who work on the back end with, doing certain things with the clients. And I have a podcast team. I have coaches. So I have people. And, now I'm like, oh my goodness, if I had to go do all this by myself again, No. And that's the
No.
reason why my podcast has taken off as well as it has. I truly believe this is the reason. It's because I had one coach who told me, don't wait, don't have a podcast team, just go and record and just grow from there. And I know that's the way a lot of people do it. Great, more power to you. However, I knew me. I know me. I don't like the technical side of stuff. I'm not going to figure out how to do the intro and the outro and mesh it all together and figure all that stuff out. That's not how I work. It's not something I enjoy, so I'm not going to do it. I wanted it to be done right, and I wanted it to go. And I had the means, unlike when I first started, I didn't have the means to have a VA, but I had the means to hire someone who's my technical person who could do it. So we did it. And then I was like, okay, where I started asking people for help. Where can I go to get their website, or where can I go to get ideas for who to have on my podcast? And I was referred to these places. And I remember, and it's just astronomical. It's like the guests have come out of the woodworks. I'm like, holy crap. And it, again, I asked for help, right? That's how you and I met. And it's because I've put these things in place, I've met so many people, and my podcast has taken off. And I truly believe that if I had just jumped in, and then sometimes that's the way you have to do it, okay? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you've just got to jump in. Certain things. I just jumped into my business. I didn't have a coach when I started my business. I didn't have a VA when I started my business. I had grit and determination. And sometimes it was enough. And then it got to a point where I'd grown so much that I needed the help if I was going to grow anymore. I needed things taken off of me. And that's when I started building it. And if you have the means to get some help to where someone can take some stress off of you so that you can focus on for example, growing my podcast so it brings me, I have clientele, or I'm growing my podcast to where I'm in the top percentage. And these are all goals. I want to be in the top percentage. I want to be able to have sponsorships, offer sponsorships where sponsors will pay to have their advertise. I want all of those, right? Those are goals. So in order for me to be able to focus on that, and I had the means to hire a podcast team that would do the technical part and releasing and all of that, it was a no-brainer. Why would I take all that extra work on? Then I would never get anywhere, and I would be working 50 hours a week just on the podcast.
Which is why so many give up. This is why we do that now, is because before we were just providing the platform, and then they just got overwhelmed with the whole thing and they gave up because the failure rate for podcasters is so big, which is why now we say, look, don't do it that way. Come on, let's get all prepped. We'll do the tech, we'll do the back end so that you can hit the ground running and grow it and you stick to it.
It's easy now. I don't have to worry about the other stuff. I focus on recording my podcast. It's in the platform. They do everything else. It's released and I'm done. I don't do nothing else.
Show up to record your podcast and then show up on calls with people who are ready to buy. Lovely. Yeah, that's the way it goes. So what else do you think, though, stops people from... There are so many female entrepreneurs out there who are struggling and they don't believe that they can have it all. Why do you think they're not actually asking for help from somebody like you who would help them in all those areas?
Either they feel like they don't think they need that type of help. That's not where the problem is. Or it's a fear of judgment, a fear of being judged, or if I have this type of person, am I going to be as successful as someone else? And again, when you think as a CEO, newsflash, majority of the businesses have CFOs, they have chief operating officers, they have chief financial officers, they have director of operations, they have those people. And when we start as an entrepreneur, and especially when we get to 6-7 figures and we're not seeing the things that are going on with the money and we're not looking at everything, we're concentrating on, again, making the money and helping our clients, etc. But when we're not looking in it and really truly making sure that it's aligned and they're and our mindset is where it should be. And it could be that they've worked on their mindset. They're just not seeing those things and they're at a certain level with it. And that's where it just gets tweaked. And we want to make sure that's aligned in those all 5 pillars. It's what I find is it's fear and or they don't think they need it, even though they do. I have tax background, okay? So I could keep up with the taxes and do that stuff. I choose not to. I instead have a tax advisor who loves doing that stuff, who willingly keeps up with that stuff, okay? So that she can help me with my business, with the ins and outs of, okay, does it make sense to do this as a business? Like, for example, I am an LLC, but I'm still considered a sole proprietor. She did an an analysis of all my things, personal, business, combined it. Because again, when it's static, it pushes over into your personal taxes, at least in the US. Does it make sense for me to become an S corp yet? Because again, if it don't make sense for me to become an S corp, and so many people become one long before my opinion they should, I want to know that it's going to save me thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't mean save me just $2,000 and then that $2,000 is now going to be spent on a second tax return and payroll taxes. Okay, because there's a rules applied to the S corp that Americans would then have to do. They have to file 2 tax returns, and they now have to pay themselves on payroll, so they're going to have payroll taxes. So when I say save me money, save me thousands and thousands of dollars. It needs to make sense for me to put an extra thing on there. And at some point, it is going to make sense. The last 2 years, it hasn't made sense. I have someone advising me. I have someone who's a tax advisor and does my taxes because I have 2 kids and one is special needs. And because she's 21 and she's on SSI, but because she's the disabled and she's going to school, there's things that are interactions, right? There's caveats to the things. I don't want to deal with that. I could. And I could also make a small mistake and never realize it. So I don't want to. I pay her to be my tax advisor all year and then pay her at the end of the year to file my taxes.
And then that gives you back your time because, like you say, this has all got to be so that you can cover all the other areas.
And I'm not worrying about if I missed something or didn't miss something or any of that because there's so many things that intertwine into it. I can focus on what I'm good at and what I love doing, right? I was good at the taxes. I just hated it. She loves that. And she loves being able to analyze and look and be able to advise on, okay, this is what I would do with your business. I wouldn't do this yet. Or, all right, if your business grows to this amount, then we need to talk so that we can look and see which way is best to go. That's someone looking out for me. She's my tax advisor. That's what you so I'm saying. So having a wealth coach and a CFO is going to be able to help you navigate certain situations. Perfect example is one of my clients is a psychologist, and she has a big practice. And earlier this year, her business, clearinghouse for insurance companies paying. It affected a lot more doctors than it did psychologists, but it did affect some of the psychologists. It was taken for ransom. So all of a sudden, these doctors aren't being paid because the clearinghouse that pays the money from the insurance companies to these doctors was taking ransom. Now, I don't know all the technical things. I just know it's happened once before, and a clearinghouse merged with another one, and some cyber took ransom over it. And because of that, it was like 3 months, 2.5, 3 months before people started getting paid. You think about small doctor's offices or small MD offices or small psychologist offices. It affected their revenue. They were seeing these clients, the insurance companies supposed to pay them, but it's stuck in la la land. They had to stop submitting their claims through this in order to get paid quickly. They had to do it the old way, which meant it would take longer to get paid. Okay. First thing she had a call with me and we navigated, okay, what's the worst case scenario? How long this will take? Okay, we have this and this that we can lean in on if we need to, including her line of credit. It wasn't something we wanted to do, and it was there if we needed it. But we also had this money put up in emergency savings that we could also go. So we navigated how we were going to do payroll, how she was going to do these things to get her through. And it was like 2 months later. And then all of a sudden they fixed it and money started showing up in her account. And she's okay. So the first quarter, my CPA said my taxes were lower, but now all the money that should have come in the first quarter is now in the second quarter. And that just doubled. So that doesn't, I said, I want you to take this. I want you to let him look at it and him tell you what your new SMA would be. So again, we're navigating it. But because I'd already predicted that would happen, we'd already put money up, and I reminded her of that. Instead of waiting to see when the money come in, we started taking proactive action. And she was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about doing the proactive action. It's because we sat down and we had that conversation. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's do this. And in the meantime, we're also going to do this and this. That's how I was able to help her, and how we were together able for her to get through that. And all her people got paid. It was a little stressful, but it wasn't nearly as stressful as it could have been if we wouldn't have been able to put a plan in place, or she wouldn't have had someone to help her put a plan in place.
So you got ahead of the issues.
Yeah. Life happens, y'all. Hello, look at COVID. Life happens. And sometimes you're not going to see it coming. And to have someone to be able, another thing is, my client, she's going to be going out on, one of my clients is going out on maternity leave in the next couple of months. Okay, let's navigate how that works. She has a couple of different payrolls that she does, and then she's got certain things. So we're making sure things are in place so that she's able to take her maternity leave and not worry about her business. And how are we still going to stay in contact? How are we still going to talk? I am taking over some of those things because I have access to certain things and I can do some of them, and some of them I was already doing. But now how are we going to stay in contact so that you're still in the loop, but you're also being able to take care of your new baby and be at home and rest? Because as any new mother knows, the last thing you're going to want to do is think about anything going on with work or anything else, because you're literally going to be feeding that baby sleeping. That's it.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
Think that's going to be different? Please come talk to me after about 8 weeks and let me know how it went for you.
Yeah, sure. So if the listeners are out there and thinking, okay, I need to sort my finances out and I know I'm in my own way, what should the listeners do next?
Contact me. Come to my website. There's a contact me form. Fill it out. Come find me on Facebook. You can find me under Lisa Marie Robinson or the Sassy Wealth Coach. Send me a message. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what we can create. I call them wealth creation calls. Let's see what we can create together and see how we can have you truly wealthy and by being wealthy in all of those 5 areas.
Thank you, Lisa, for taking your time out today, for speaking with us. And I love the tag, Sassy Wealth Queen. What a great title there. So brilliant. To the listeners, if you're struggling and you need to get things organized, and rather than working in your business, you want to just work on your business, then get in touch. And until next week, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.